Our topic today is Portland, a sports city. Our moderator is Oregonian columnist Steve Dean, and our panel members are Larry Miller, president of the Portland Trailblazers, and Merritt Paulson, owner of the Portland Beavers and Timbers. For the benefit of our radio and television audiences, please turn off your cell phones and other electronic devices. First, a few announcements. Join us next Friday when our topic will be, is sustainability a mere buzzword or a great economic opportunity? And join us to hear the business perspective on sustainability when our speakers will be Jay Clemens, president of Association of Oregon Industries, Associated Oregon Industries, and Ryan Decker, president of the Oregon Business Association. In about 4 hours, you should consider walking over to the City Club Commons. And why? That's because it's when we start our leap year final Friday. It's the only one for the next 4 years. City Club members and their guests are invited to drop by and sample the food and the no-host bar from 4:30 to 6. The event's free and open to the public, and no RSVP is required. You should also consider signing up for a walking tour, and that's on Saturday, March 8th at 2 o'clock. And if you've been to the park blocks by Portland State University recently, you can see that the landscape is changing. The Portland's Walk of the Heroines, an innovative park, is about halfway towards completion, and the landscape architect for that park will be the leader of the tour. And after the walk, a diverse group of women leaders will have a discussion led by City Club member Melody Rose, who's also the founder and director of New Leadership Oregon. And this is going to be an interesting panel, and when I read the members, you'll see why. Participants will include vocalist Storm Large, Police Chief Rosie Sizer, NAACP Portland Chapter President Charlene McGee, the Equalities Federation's Rory Thorpe, and editor and co-founder of Bitch Magazine, Andy Zeisler. So the cost is $10 and RSVP to Kim at the City Club. And a committee of City Club board and club members has begun the search for a new executive director. Information about this position is in the City Club bulletin, and the website, and applications are due by March 15th. We have 2 new members today, and we'd like to welcome, Steve Raleigh, neighborhood school activist, and Barry Adams to City Club. Would you stand up and be recognized, please? We wouldn't be able to have these City Club Friday forums without the support of our great corporate sponsors, and please join me in thanking our sponsors this quarter, McEwen Gisvold, LLP, and Edelman Public Relations. Is Portland a sports city? Well, before we can answer this question, maybe we should ask one other. What's the definition of a sports city? I think we would all probably agree that Boston, New York, and Los Angeles meet the requirements, but should Seattle be included? And what about Portland? Yes, that's our City of Roses, the largest city in the country with only one major league sports franchise. And as one well-known sports columnist who is passionate about Major League Baseball in Portland wrote, no, Steve, it's not John Canzano, but there's a time when a city loses its fascination with second-tier or minor league sports. It's when the citizens figure they're big league worthy and don't want to accept anything less than that. And yet, if you've been to a recent Portland Beavers game like I have, you can feel the buzz and excitement at PGE Park. Our panel today is certainly well qualified to debate the role of sports in the civic and economic fabric of the community both now and in the future. Most of us recognize our moderator because we see his logo each day at the top of the Metro column in the Oregonian. Steve Dean went to work for the Oregonian in 1980. He was the paper's first political columnist. He then wrote a sports column for 6 years before he got the Metro column assignment in 1994. He's not only a columnist, he's a writer and has co-authored or written 5 books. And let's real quickly review his skill as a columnist. A book review in Willamette Week stated, "For more than 20 years, Steve Dean has given Portlanders a reason to get out of bed in the morning. His sports writing mattered, even to writers who didn't care about sports. He told stories that couldn't be gleaned from reading box scores or watching the games." Steve has also twice been named the nation's best columnist by the Society of Professional Journalists. Our moderator went to Wake Forest University, and that's where he got both his undergraduate and master's degree in English. It's interesting to note that one of Steve's passions is comics. In fact, he's written an extensive collection of comic books. He has an extensive collection of comic books, Golden Age comic books from the 1940s and 50s, and one of his books is entitled Comics Between the Panels. And in fact, one of his other books is Blast Off, Rockets, Robots, Ray Guns, and Rarities from the Golden Age of Comedies. And besides his love of writing, Steve has a passion for reading, which started when he was a 7th grader, and we probably know about, most of us know about his annual reading contest, which he started in 1995, and the record holder in this contest read 181,000 pages in 1 year. Finally, when I met with Steve to get some background information for this, he concluded with a statement, "Don't worry, Don, you can't embarrass me." Well, I think he's probably wrong, but the Oregonian wouldn't grant my request for his personnel file because it's not a public record. Please join me in welcoming Steve Dean.
Thanks, Don. Obviously, great pleasure to be here and to introduce sort of the main attractions of the Friday Forum. In July 2007, Larry Miller was named president and alternate governor of the Portland Trailblazers. Alternate governor. Now there's an intriguing concept. A native of West Philadelphia, Larry got his undergraduate degree from Temple in 1982, the son of a guy who made sheetrock for a living. He worked full-time while going to school, scheduled his classes during the day, then, at least for a period of time, drove a limousine from 4 p.m. to midnight. Howard Cosell once caught a ride in his limo. So did Pete Rose. I assume you were heading to the Jersey casinos, but he came west to work for Janssen and eventually proved he could serve as president of a swimwear company without knowing how to swim. He joined Nike in 1997 as vice president of the U.S. Apparel Division. 2 years later, Larry was president of the Jordan brand. He was vice president and general manager of the company's basketball operations when he joined the Trailblazers. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Miller. Our second guest today is Merritt Paulson, who owns the Portland Beavers and the Portland Timbers. You could do far worse than a dinner invitation when the Paulson family gets together. His mother is a trustee at Cornell and chairs a grassroots conservation group. His father is the secretary of the Treasury. His wife, Heather, works on a strategy group at Nike. Before coming to Portland, Merritt worked for HBO and NBA Entertainment. He serves on the board of the Wildlife Conservation Society, the culmination of an interest in this planet that has its roots in the field trips and family vacations he took as a kid. His family camped out in the Amazon rainforest. They caught anacondas in Venezuela. When Merritt took a wrong turn into a breeding colony while snorkeling in the Galapagos, he was attacked by a bull sea lion, headbutted him, knocked him out of the water, put such a gash in his stomach that the family had to close the wound with his grandmother's sewing needles. I am not making this up. Ladies and gentlemen, Merritt Paulson. First question, Larry, do you have any extra Springsteen tickets?
Sorry, they're all sold out. We might be able to find a couple on eBay, though.
eBay, that's the place to look. Thanks for the help. The question of the hour, and let's begin there, is Portland a decent sports city? That there still seems to be some doubt, maybe answer enough, but I thought let's begin first, Larry, with your sort of opening thoughts on that question.
Well, I've been here in Portland for 15 years, and I moved here during the height of the Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, those days of the Trailblazers. And moving here from Philadelphia, which is a city that has all four major sports. So Philadelphia has all four of the major sports. Moving here, I definitely, once I got here, knew that Portland was a sports city just by the way people here were reacting and responding to the Trailblazers at that particular point in time. Over the years, that love affair that the city had with the Blazers kind of waned quite a bit, but I'm happy to say that we feel that it's coming back. I mean, we're right now in the midst of a great run down at the Rose Garden. Fans are absolutely back. We've had about, I guess, 19 or 20 sellouts in a row right now, and are anticipating that we're going to sell out the remainder of the season. So to me, you know, there's no question that when we put the right product on the basketball court, that this city absolutely responds to it, and that the fans absolutely respond. And to me, even though we don't have, the Trailblazers are the only major league sport that we have at this point, I absolutely believe that this is a sports city, and to me, it's evident by the way the fans, and not just the fans, but just the city in general, reacts when the Trailblazers are doing well. And not just when they're doing well on the court, but one of the keys that I think for a community like Portland is we have to make sure that the players that we bring here and that the product that we offer in terms of the team has character. One of the things that I think hurt this team over the years was I think we kind of got away from that for a while. We got away from the fact that the players that we bring here have to not only be great players on the court, but they need to be good people off the court. And we are absolutely focused on that, again, from the top of the organization at Paul Allen to Kevin Pritchard, the general manager, to Nate McMillan, the coach. We are, and the entire organization, we're all focused on the fact that we have an obligation to this city to make sure that the players that we bring here will represent this city in the way that it should be. So I think when we're doing that, which I think have gotten back to the point where we are doing that, then this city absolutely responds in a positive way to the Trailblazers, and we're in the midst of seeing that happen right now.
Okay, thanks. Merritt?
Well, I don't have that much to add to that. I'd say right now I'm a little worried with Oregon State and Georgia opening up a series at PGE Park that the weather gods are perhaps conspiring and maybe not agreeing that this town's a sports city given this atypically terrific weather we've had the last couple days and forecast for next week, yet it's supposed to rain over our whole homestand here. But, you know, for the better part of 4 years, I assessed a variety of sports ownership opportunities, and if I didn't believe that Portland was an unbelievable sports city, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I think that, you know, you can look at a lot of objective metrics, you know, ratings in the community. The Mariners have better ratings in Portland than most primary team ratings, you know, youth participation, et cetera. And by all those standards, Portland is certainly a passionate sports city. And to Larry's point, I would agree that Portland is unique and in its sensitivity. You know, anywhere community involvement is crucial to the success of sports teams, and you know, making sure that the teams reflect positively on the community. I would say that's true even more here than anywhere else I've seen. You know, we're making a lot of efforts in that regard with our community funds and really ratcheting that up. But I'd say Portland's unique in that regard. But no question, Portland's a great sports town.
Merritt, has the window closed on any opportunity Portland has to attract a Major League Baseball franchise? And would you please guide us through the simple, though potentially expensive steps or hoops we need to jump through to bring Major League Baseball to Portland? And finally, sort of as part of that, how do you get a mayor or a governor to, or anyone, to stand up and marshal the political forces that are surely part of the formula?
Well, short answer is no. The window's not closed. Major League Baseball is not expanding right now, so there's some, aspects that are out of our control. There needs to be a mobile franchise, but I would say it's a longer-term opportunity to attract Major League Baseball here right now for a variety of reasons. Certainly, the costs are significant. You'd need to build a new, 30 to 40,000 seat MLB venue, $600+ million, and you've got a large population here that's somewhat underserved, but the private sector, the business support isn't what it needs to be yet to justify that type of investment. I think it's moving that way. We've got on soccer, much more of a near-term opportunity to get a major league team here. We've got a facility that works in PGE Park, significantly less capital investment involved, and that's here and now, and that's something that we're actively pursuing. Certainly, I think that MLB could happen and hopefully will happen, but is it ready right now? I'd say probably not. In terms of the political support, I'd say that, what was the question there? What do we need to do to get a mayor behind,
Yeah, I mean, Tom Potter has clearly said no matter how you dress this up, you need a $50 million subsidy from the city, and you're not going to get it. How do you get a mayor who might have a different take on that?
Well, I mean, I think that speaks to the broader question about public support for sports initiatives and ventures, and actually, the conversations I've had with the city have been quite positive in terms of clear recognition about the value that sports provide. And again, the figures we're talking about are relatively modest relative to certainly what our friend up north in Seattle has spent and benefited from relatively recently with Safeco and Quest Field. But you're looking at typically a one-time investment over the course of 12 to 24 months, and there's significant hard economic benefits that you see in terms of the jobs that are created, the money that gets attracted to develop back in and around the community. I mean, look at the benefits in San Diego, our parent club with the Beavers, and in San Francisco, and the way those ballparks have impacted the surrounding neighborhoods. I mean, they're quite significant. So, I actually have not found. Everybody warned me, Portland's a city that isn't willing to spend on sports, and I haven't seen that to be the case.
Larry, when Steve Patterson was still in town, the Blazers were very aggressive in lobbying Portland's city council against plans to bring Major League Baseball to town. Is it the Blazers' position that they need a monopoly on sports franchises here? And more to the point, when it comes to the need for a Major League franchise, are the Blazers part of the problem or part of the solution?
Well, I can't speak on Steve's comments, but from my perspective, I don't see a problem with Major League Baseball existing alongside of the Portland Trailblazers here. I don't see a problem with that at all. To me, if the city can sustain it, and if the investment is there, and if we could work it out where Major League Baseball could exist here, I don't think that from our perspective there'd be a problem. I think it's proven that there are a lot of cities throughout the country where multiple sports are able to coexist, and I think under the right conditions, the same thing could be the case here in Portland.
Merritt, PGE Park may be many things, but a charming, intimate park it's not. You attract a crowd of 5,000 there, which may work in a lot of minor league towns, and you still feel like you're sort of playing in a wind tunnel. Is your business viable at its current location?
I'd have to say I sort of challenge the premise of the question a bit. I mean, I think that PG Park's a fabulous facility. I mean, it's rare to have a downtown location that's walkable and accessible from public transportation. It's got a lot of charm, a lot of character. You know, from a baseball standpoint, you've got Ivy in the outfield coming from Chicago. I look at that and I think back to Wrigley Field and maybe a little bit of a green monster thing as well. Yeah, it's bigger, perhaps ideally than you'd look for from a AAA standpoint, but from a soccer standpoint, it works real well, and it's got attributes for both baseball and soccer, which are terrific. But in terms of are our businesses viable? Yeah, very much. I mean, we're viable going concerns with the Beavers and the Timbers, and really, you know, that's not just an attendance-driven fact. That's the fact that the local businesses and the community have really started embracing our businesses. You know, well before I arrived here. I'd say, you know, the turn was really 2005 moving forward, and our attendance numbers are strong and growing right now.
Hey, Larry, other than the 2005 drafting Martell Webster against, Chris Paul, Wake Forest alumnus. Actually, he's not an alumnus, but you know, other than that draft, it's hard to remember the last time the Blazers made a major personnel mistake, especially in the front office. Kevin Pritchard, Nate McMillan, Mike Golub, Sherry Hansen, and yes, Larry Miller have been impressive hires. But these hires followed a dreary period in franchise history when Bob Whitsitt and Steve Patterson made one disastrous call after another. Why did it take Paul Allen so long to fix problems that were obvious to Portlanders for years, and do you know what the tipping point was?
Well, again, I can't, I'm not going to criticize past regimes, but I think that ultimately at some point, Paul realized that things were not moving in a direction that he wanted to move. And to me, Paul's ultimate goal has been and continues to be to win a championship, to bring a championship to this city. That's been his goal. And I think he felt like the efforts that were being made, not just by himself, but by the other folks that were involved, that was what they were trying to do. Now, whether they were making the right types of decisions in order to do that, that was the goal, that was the effort. And obviously it didn't work. And at some point, I think the realization was there that, hey, this is not working, and I need to try something different. And so I think the hires that have been made over the last few years with Nate and Kevin specifically, I think they definitely got involved in turning things around. And I think again, it comes back to the idea of character being a key component in terms of when you're looking at what type of players or which players to bring here. And I think, if we start there, and it's been proven, I think that that teams can have character individuals and win. I think if you look at a team like San Antonio, for instance, you don't hear about issues in San Antonio in terms of the character of their players, and they're perennial winners. And I think we are on the path to put that same type of team together, to have the same type of effect where, we've got quality individuals and we're going to win. But I think, to me, at the end of the day, Paul's ultimate goal has been to bring a championship to this town. Again, maybe the approach and the direction that was taken in the past didn't work. And I think ultimately, he's made the adjustments that I think are going to get us to that point where, we do win a championship and we do it with quality individuals.
Thanks. Hey, Merritt, you've been in town how long?
A little over 7 months.
I've been here 28 years, and when I showed up, there was one pro major league franchise, and the best in college ball was being played, with the exception of University of Portland soccer team, 90 miles away. Can you consider Portland a major league sports town in its present configuration, or do you need to bring in, again, baseball, hockey, do you need to bring in something else?
Well, I don't see it as sports as being my major league versus minor league per se. Certainly, Blazer Mania and very successful Blazer teams have been here for years and years, and the Blazers have shown they can be successful as a major league franchise. I talked to, in terms of what we're offering, at the AAA level. I'm not quite sure. There's certainly some very real benefits that we offer in terms of affordability and accessibility relative to Major League Baseball. You don't have the marquee star appeal, but the product that we're putting out there on the field is just a hair away from, you got guys who are going up and coming down and having a real impact at the Major League level. I mean, stories like Jack Cust last year, being the surprise superstar with the A's. He'd been with the Beavers, and our pitchers are routinely throwing in the mid-90s. Yet, how often if you bring your family to the ballpark and you bring them to Safeco or Wrigley Field or Fenway Park, how often can you get them out on the field after the game? And certainly it's less corporate. It's more affordable ticket prices. It's a terrific product. And, for one thing I would say is that if Major League Baseball ever is going to come here, it's not going to come here unless the AAA product's the most successful one in the league. And, that's just a fact. I may not seem to be the most objective source, for that information, but it's certainly the reality.
And how far are we from that being the case, it being the most successful AAA franchise in the league?
We're moving very, very solidly in the right direction.
Larry, you've worked for two billionaires, Phil Knight and Paul Allen. Could you give us a little insight into their personalities and their differences? And can you also tell us what you learned at Nike that has been the most beneficial in your management experience with the Trailblazers?
Well, unfortunately, working for those billionaires hasn't helped me out in terms of reaching that status. I didn't learn that much from them in order of how to become a billionaire. But it's been an interesting situation for me. Actually, one of the things that I've noticed is that they both are. There are actually some similarities in terms of their personalities. They both have little idiosyncrasies about their personalities that really make them different. Both, are very, very bright individuals, and the interactions and the contacts that I've had with both of them, Phil a lot more than Paul, since I worked for Phil a lot longer, have really been situations where I always come away feeling like I've learned something or taken something away that I can then apply to the business and just in general. So it's definitely been interesting working for them. They like I said, they're both somewhat reclusive, or have, I would say, maybe reserved personalities, which is kind of interesting. Neither of them want to be out front in terms of being the guys who are in the spotlight or in the camera. They both like to take kind of a behind the scenes approach, which is kind of interesting. Unlike maybe someone like Mark Cuban, who is in Dallas and is the billionaire owner of the Dallas Mavericks, but Mark wants to be someone who's out front and in the spotlight, and neither Paul nor Phil have that characteristic about them. So it's been very interesting as far as things that I learned at Nike that I've been able to kind of transfer to the Blazers. I think one of the key things that I learned working at Nike is really the importance of maintaining the integrity of your brand. Nike is really, really focused on not doing anything that is going to be detrimental to their brand or is going to impact negatively on the integrity of what their brand represents. And I think for me, being able to take that same approach and have that same focus with the Trailblazer brand and make sure that we are maintaining the integrity of our brand we're not, doing things or having people associated with our brand that are going to negatively impact it. That is something that I feel like I brought from Nike that I'm really focused on when it comes to the Trailblazer brand.
Hey, Merritt, I occasionally trot out the theory that Portland is a small town and attracts people who are, a small pond, and attracts people who are most comfortable swimming in laid-back waters. You don't strike me as a small pond guy. Can you give me your impressions of the city and your sense of whether highly motivated people can be happy here, or eventually they might feel the need to make their mark in New York, Chicago, LA, wherever?
It's funny because moving from Manhattan, in my first month here, I had more people ask me, wow, that must be a big change sort of from the hustle and bustle of New York coming here to Portland. And I thinking in the back of my head, geez, I'm working twice as hard here than I ever worked in New York. But one of the aspects, certainly coming to the conclusion that this town, it represents a really unique sports opportunity was fundamental to our decision to locate here and put down roots. But I'd say there was a personal part of that as well that I wouldn't want to overlook. And the quality of life in Portland, it's, you only have to look at any list, the top 10 cities to live in the country, and Portland's at least a top 5 on most of them, and that's for a reason. I mean, Heather and I are big outdoors people, and we live in an area where there's terrific public schools, and we couldn't be happier to be here, and this is a long-term thing. So absolutely, I do not feel the need to. I grew up in Chicago and moved out from New York. I'm be far happier making the mark here in Portland.
Larry, whatever happened to redevelopment at the Rose Quarter? What can we expect in the future that would allow that area to sustain a decent restaurant? And what does the future hold for Memorial Coliseum?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think when the Rose Quarter was developed initially, there was a vision that it would become the sports and entertainment center of Portland, and I think somewhere along the way that vision got lost, and a lot of things happened, I think, that caused that. We absolutely are in the process of revisiting that vision and really redeveloping that vision, because I believe, and I think that the team there at the Blazers believes the same thing, that the opportunity for that area to become the sports and entertainment center of Portland is still there. And I think what we need to do and how we need to develop that vision are some of the things that we're currently working on. Memorial Coliseum definitely is a part of that, and as we're working and looking at the development of that area, we are looking at Memorial Coliseum. But the reality is Memorial Coliseum belongs to the city. It doesn't belong to us. And so any plans or development that we would look to do in that area would absolutely have to be in conjunction with the city, because of the fact that Memorial Coliseum belongs to the city. But we are in the process of kind of revisiting the vision for what the Rose Quarter is going to be. And you're absolutely right. Part of that, if we're going to bring a restaurant there, it's got to be one that's going to draw whether there's an event or not. Because having a restaurant that only draws during an event is not going to be successful there. It has to be a destination. If there's going to be a restaurant there, it has to be a restaurant that's going to be a destination, whether there's an event going on at the Rose Garden or not. And so we are looking at the whole vision of redeveloping or continuing the development of the Rose Quarter.
And Larry, is there a timetable on that? I mean, summer of 2009? I mean, do you have any idea when?
Well, right now, we're still in the process of developing the plans, going back and reviewing some of the things that have been proposed in the past, looking at what things have changed over the time period, and then coming to a conclusion of what should we be working on in terms of that development now? We're also in the process of trying to figure out, are there some partners in the area or partners that we should be looking to work with in terms of the development of that area. But we definitely think that, it is the right area to be the center for sports and entertainment in the city.
Merritt, now and then, cheap beer and the lovable antics of the Timbers Army push the rowdiness at PGE Park a little bit past the PG-13 level. It's no coincidence, I suppose, that you draw the best crowds on Thirsty Thursdays, and no coincidence that 10 of your 15 home dates in 2008 are on Thursdays. Can you continue to attract families to the park without dialing back on the beer and the lovable chaos? And what do you do to ensure that all patrons can sort of exist in harmony at the park?
Well, we have an unusual facility when you look at how many events that we host. Well, over 100 on an annual basis, and the vast majority of our promotions are family focused. Friday night dollar family feast, the Saturday giveaways, the family Sunday afternoons, and it's important for us to reach out to a variety of demographics, and we don't have the marquee athlete, to market, and a lot of what we're selling is fan experience and our promotions, and so we're creative in our promotions, and certainly the Thirsty Thursdays are a slightly different demographic. Now, I'd take a step back and say, I don't care what night of the week it is, fan safety is absolutely our paramount focus from a customer service standpoint, and not just safety, but the overall fan experience from the moment a customer purchases a ticket to the moment they walk off our premises. We want everybody to have a fun experience at PGE Park. And we really, anytime you've got a venue, athletic or not athletic, where you're selling alcoholic beverages, you're going to have some chance for disruption. That's the price that you're selling it at, isn't. I don't think it's. I mean, it's just a reality of selling alcohol, and we've had next to no instances at Thirsty Thursdays, and certainly. Plan to continue that. And in terms of the Timbers and the Timbers Army, our soccer experience is one of the most authentic soccer experiences, Major League Soccer or any other level of soccer, that you're going to find in the States. Have a group of fans at the north end on their feet, chanting throughout the match. I mean, people come to watch the action on the pitch, but they also come to watch the Timbers Army. I mean, they're an attraction. They're our most ardent fans. We're in regular dialogue with them. If we have an issue, we meet with them regularly, and I'm not sure I would characterize them as over PG. What was that you said? PG-13, or was that PGE-13? There is a chant where they've got a profanity that comes out. It's not necessarily audible all the time. I've got an issue with that. We're working with them on that right now. That's an example of us working together. But overall, and I'm not also wouldn't suggest that a family with 5 kids venture down into the north end, during a Timbers game. But that's just one section of the park, and they're certainly a big part of our experience, a big attraction, and our most ardent fans. So.
Okay. Hey, Larry, can you give us a better sense of how decisions are made with the Blazers? Who exactly is Todd Lewicki, and where do the legendary Vulcans fit into the decisions made that are crucial to the health of the franchise?
Todd's title is CEO of Vulcan Sports and Entertainment, which consists of the Trailblazers and the Seahawks right now. They're in the process of launching a Major League Soccer team. So Todd's position is basically kind of overseeing the sports and entertainment aspect of Vulcan's business. Vulcan is Paul Allen's company. It's his holding company. It's run by him and his sister Jody Patton, who is the CEO of Vulcan. And the reality is, they basically allow us to run and operate the team the way we see fit. Now, the reality is the money is coming from Paul. So, Paul is writing the checks, and he has the right to know how we're managing this entity down here since he is funding it. But for the most part, they do allow us to manage the business. They allow us to make the decisions on a day-to-day basis and to determine, how the business needs to be run, how the team needs to be run. Paul does get involved in player decisions. He definitely enjoys that. That's a part of, I think, the lure for him to own a sports team is that he can get involved in helping to make some of the player decisions. But at the end of the day, drafts and trades, we all kind of weigh in on that. So it's Kevin, it's Nate, it's myself, it's Paul. Todd will have a weigh in from time to time, but an example is on draft day this past year, we all got together in the war room and we talked about it, and we kind of came to the decision unanimously that we were going to draft Greg Oden. But it was something that everybody had an opportunity to weigh in on, and at the end of kind of the discussion, we all came to the conclusion that Greg was the right pick for this team. So the decisions, Paul does weigh in mainly on some of the player decisions, but the day-to-day running of the business is definitely done by the management team that's here.
Hey, Merritt, you obviously incredible conservation background in your family, and yet you have someone in the Bush administration. Have you decided who you're voting for president?
No.
Okay. Merritt, what's the deal with the MLS, and why did the expansion franchise go to Seattle, not Portland?
Seattle's a great city for soccer as well. It's not Portland and Seattle aren't mutually exclusive on MLS by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, that probably bolsters our argument in terms of the rivalry. We've had a great rivalry at the USL level, and in having teams in Portland and Seattle and potentially even Vancouver, British Columbia would be a strong thing, and I think an attractive thing from an MLS standpoint. And was your question sort of beyond the Seattle aspect in terms of what we're doing with MLS and what's involved there?
Yes.
We are actively pursuing, as I said earlier, a soccer team, and our hope would be that we'd have Major League Soccer here in Portland for 2010. To make that happen, we do need some improvements to PGE Park in terms of, we're configured right now in a bit of a boomerang, and you would need to get fans permanently on the other sideline in more of a horseshoe configuration. And for that to happen, eventually the Beavers would need to relocate to a baseball-specific venue in Portland. There's no danger of the Beavers leaving Portland, and we'd like to do that in an area that would involve, that would potentially be on a footprint that could work for Major League Baseball if and when that opportunity were to arise, save significant money and just in terms of the infrastructure there, and it would also be a real positive for Portland State University and their football program with the changes at PGE Park, and so I guess those are the dynamics at play there.
Okay. I have just a couple more questions, and I'm going to get out of the way and let you all have your turn. Larry, as president or head of the Jordan brand, I trust you had incredible face time with Michael Jordan, and I wouldn't be surprised if you had similar contact with Tiger Woods while at Nike. Can you share some anecdotes about these two athletes and what the rest of us might learn from their talents, their discipline, their priorities?
Well, I did have an opportunity to spend time with both Michael and Tiger. A lot more with Michael than with Tiger, but I have had the opportunity to spend time with both. And one of the things that is pretty evident in both of those guys, if you're around them, is just how driven they are. And it's whether it's on the golf course or the basketball court or tiddlywinks. Those guys are both driven to win. I mean, they will, work and their work ethic is just unbelievable. They have the God-given talent. There's no doubt about that. They both are extremely talented and were born with talent. But the thing that is evident about both of them when you're around them is how hard they work to hone and develop that talent. So it's not by accident that they both achieve the kinds of things that they achieved in their sports, because they both are absolutely driven. And like I said, neither of them want to lose anything. If you're playing checkers with either one of those guys, they're going to do everything they can and try their best to beat you. And it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, I remember my son said something to Michael one time when he was about 14 or 15. He said something about taking Michael to the basket, and he gave him this look like, "Try it, kid." So I mean, it doesn't matter. If he's playing whatever the sport is, whatever the game is, they both are absolutely driven to win. And it's amazing to see that kind of drive in an individual, because I think I like to feel like I'm a pretty driven guy, but when I look at these guys and their drive and their enthusiasm and their focus on winning whatever it is they're doing, and the thing about it is there's such a similarity in both of them. That same trait exists in both of them.
Last question for both of you, but we'll start here with Merritt. As sports becomes increasingly prominent in our culture, there's clearly more money, more designer drugs, more business opportunities. There's more of everything. And I'm curious, as you watch this sort of escalate, if there's some downsides that you see, if there's some things that you concern about the way we're going with sort of the celebrity culture in sports, with our obsessiveness with it, if there's some things that concern you about the way this is sort of drifting down through the other layers of society.
Well, I would say that there's certainly have been a couple negative headlines over the last couple of years, but sports can have a tremendously, and does have a tremendously positive impact on the community. That was the case yesterday, that's the case today, and that's going to be the case tomorrow. I think, just in terms of the type of civic pride that sports can create, and, even in this digital age, people always are going to have the social need to come together, and movie theaters will always exist for that reason, and to be able to sports is the ultimate in reality TV. In many ways, it's a true meritocracy. You can have politics in your day-to-day life, and you might have an issue with an official's call or something, but usually the better team wins, and there's something pretty neat about that. And at a bigger picture, I'd say sports can directly, there's the soft side of the civic pride, which I wouldn't want to take away from, but in terms of using sports as a vehicle to shine a light on areas of the community that need help, athletes, just by virtue of the way people look up to them, when an athlete's doing like Larry organizes Read to Achieve programs, that packs a punch. And I'd say from a historical context, look at a great example of this at a much bigger level would be when Jackie Robinson signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. That wasn't like IBM hiring a senior African American male. That was because it was sports. Everybody cared, and that was the very much an impetus for the civil rights movement. So sports can have a tremendously positive, and does have a tremendously positive impact on its community, and I think that in terms of some of the things that you've spoken about, steroids or whatever they may be, I think that's being dealt with, and it's unfortunate, but it's being dealt with, and it's going to be a part of history and not part of the future, and the positives that I'm talking about will be a part of the future and will continue to be.
Larry, any thoughts?
I would just piggyback on what Merritt said, and I think he's on point. And to me, the other another aspect of it is the emotional connection that people have with sports. I think, you can, even before I was associated with working in sports or working with sports, you could go into to work the day after the team wins a big game, and people are kind of upbeat and they're talking about it, and there's this kind of emotional high that a lot of people are affected by based on that. Vice versa, if the team has lost a big game the night before, it kind of affects people's emotions as well. So I think sports definitely has an emotional impact on people individually and on areas. And then the other thing is, I think, I believe that there is kind of a shift going on with athletes. I think, we've seen a lot of negative things over the last, couple years or so, but I do think that there is a shift that's happening in terms of just the positive aspect that is being put back on the focus of athletes. So again, I take our team, and for instance, and say, we are absolutely focused on the character of the players that we bring in here, and I think that makes a big difference. And I think you're starting to see that. I know in the NBA, I feel like we're starting to see more and more of that, come into play, where there are these players who are coming into the league who are incredible athletes, but they're also good kids. I mean, you sit down and talk to them, and they're not maybe the guys that were coming into the league before, where there was this whole negative attitude. The kids that are the majority of the kids that we're seeing come into the NBA right now really are positive kids, and we talk about a lot, how many of these good kids are now, again, they're great athletes, but they're also bringing a sense of character, a sense of responsibility to the communities. Greg Oden, to me, is a great example of that, somebody who has come into this community, hasn't played one game yet, but Greg is already, he's already someone that has a real positive impact on this community. He introduced the First Lady yesterday at an event that was going on yesterday morning. And again, he hasn't played one game in this city, but he already has become, someone that the city has adopted. And it's because he is really this good kid at the end of the day.
Merritt, Larry, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
To ask a question at a Friday forum, you don't have to be an athlete or even a fan. You just have to be a City Club member and have a question of 30 seconds or less. Today, our first question will be asked by our board host, Ted Kay, who's treasurer of the club and vice president for finance at Teledirect International.
Thank you, Don. This is the $600 million question. The noted Portland historian E. Kimbark McCall, himself a longtime City Club member, often quotes a commentator from the early 20th century who observed that Portlanders always seem to want to go first class on a steerage ticket. Given that frugal history of our city, how would you expect parsimonious Portlanders to request to help participate in funding some kind of major league stadium that might cost up to $600 million?
Is that me or Larry?
I'll ask it of both of you.
You want?
I think it's more relevant.
Well, if that classification is accurate, it certainly bodes well for our affordable family businesses right now at PGE Park. But look, using some element of public money for investment in sports isn't a new concept. I mean, this goes back to ancient Greece and Rome, and involves things other than sports, libraries and museums, and I think there's this mindset out there that you've got these rich owners trying to eat at the public trough, and the reality is, without that investment, it wouldn't enable the franchises to exist. And for all the benefits that Larry and I have been talking about, Sports, are a tremendously positive aspect to a community, and I think that I do believe that public investment in sports, albeit at a fraction of the level that other cities like Seattle have committed to, is very possible, and so.
Yeah, I would just add, so with the Rose Garden, I think this community was extremely fortunate in that an owner, Paul Allen, stepped in and built the facility without, a penny of public funding to going into the building of that facility. But the other side of that is, since 1970, the Trailblazers have generated about $2.5 billion in direct spending here in this community. So to me, I think it comes down to being clear and kind of explaining the financial benefits of making an investment of that nature. So if you can, show people how, yeah, we're asking you to make an investment today, but over time, that investment is going to more than pay for itself, and the return is definitely going to be there if it's managed properly, if the right type of people and team are put in place, and if it's done right, that it's an investment up front, but the reality is there is a significant return on that investment if done properly.
Let me just add on to that, which is even in I don't know all the specifics about the Rose Garden, but there's been a couple notable what have been deemed private investments in large sports venues. For instance, the facility that the Giants play in San Francisco. But there's the reality of those when you peel off the cover is there's usually a fair amount of tax benefits and infrastructure and other public elements that have been provided to enable those ventures.
Jay Bloom, City Club member. Merritt and Larry, I appreciate if you could expand on how your current organizations are involved in giving back and community service and any of your plans for the future.
Well, I think the Trailblazers organization has been involved in giving back to this community for a long, long time, probably since its inception. But we recently, this particular season, we developed a new kind of umbrella for all of our giving efforts that we call it Make It Better. And what we've done is kind of put all of our efforts under this Make It Better umbrella and continue to do a number of things throughout the community to give back and to help this community. One example is we just finished, or we're in the process, we're not quite finished yet, of redoing every basketball court in all of the Portland public high schools. And every Portland public high school, we've gone in this season and redid the basketball courts, and every one of them needed it. Every one of them was in pretty bad shape, and so we kind of took that on as something that we would do. But we're continually looking for ways and doing things in the community and looking for ways to give back to the community. And I think this Make It Better program is going to allow us to really have, like I said, this umbrella under which we will continue to move forward in all the things that we're doing to give back to the community.
I'd say on our end, there's been a number of significant announcements in the last year. We've got new field turf. We've announced the 2009 AAA All-Star Games coming to Portland. We've had U.S. women's soccer come to PGE Park, a lot of other things. But the thing I'm far and away most pleased about and most proud of is the announcement of the Portland Beavers and Timbers Community Fund. We've always been involved in the community and outreach and helping groups fundraise and sending our players, out to schools and hospitals, et cetera. But now we're getting engaged at a philanthropic level as well, and we'll be giving away more money into the community than any other AAA team that exists today. And the focus of the organization is really focused on youth, through age 12 in the greater Portland area with sort of 3 verticals underneath that umbrella. 1 is education, 2 is fitness and well-being, and 3 is environmental education, something that's sort of near and dear to my heart, and we're going to be doing a number of other things related to making PGE a more green facility as well, so stay tuned for those. But you know, we're extremely active in the community, and we're going to be even more active in the community going forward.
Heather Komet, City Club member. If you both wouldn't mind addressing how you think Portland's embracing non-franchise sports, such as our love of cycling and the recent success of the Davis Cup coming to Portland, how that might parallel and build on Portland's reputation as a sports town or lack thereof.
It's a great point you make. I mean, I think that the way that Portland's embraced the Davis Cup, which Larry hosted, and you know the U.S. women's match. I mean, and it's had a long tradition of that. I mean, there's a real appetite and hunger for sports at a big level here in Portland. Portland's shown that it will support sports. So, you know, I very much agree with that premise.
Yeah, I think that just, to me, goes back to the original question of whether Portland is a sports town, and I think it absolutely is a sports town, and I think Portland responds to sports of all kinds, not just basketball or baseball or soccer, but again, something like the Davis Cup to come to Portland and have the kind of success that it had here. The folks who managed that were thrilled with not only the turnout, but just how they were received, and you know how fans participated and got involved in what was going on as far as the Davis Cup is concerned. So I definitely think you know, that just further lends itself to the fact that Portland is a sports town.
Arnold, one quick question, and then we'll have to adjourn.
Okay, Arnold Kogan, member of the City Club. Mr. Miller, this question is for. It seems that the Seattle Sonics are soon going to be leaving Seattle. Should we be concerned that Paul Allen will be tempted to move the Blazers to Seattle?
Well, first of all, I personally, I hope that the Sonics don't move from Seattle. I think having a healthy NBA team in Seattle, along with a healthy NBA team here in Portland, is beneficial to the sport of basketball and to the league and to our area. That being said, if the Sonics were to move, I think that it does provide, what it does is it provides some additional opportunity for us, just like, you know, the Seahawks are considered the Northwest football team. We would then be considered the Northwest NBA team. As far as Paul moving the team, that absolutely, I could say unequivocally, that's not going to happen from my perspective. One of the, you know, before I took this job at the Blazers, I had a pretty good job. And one of the things that I spent some time talking to Paul Allen about before taking this job was his commitment to this team and this city. Paul's just invested another $100 million to buy the arena back. And so he made it pretty clear to me that he was committed not just to the team, but this community. And so that was a big part of me agreeing to take the job. I have no concern whatsoever about him moving this team to Portland. There's never been, excuse me, to Seattle. There's never been any discussions or anything that I've seen or heard or read or anywhere along the lines that would make me think that. The other thing is, I think if the Sonics do move from Seattle, the NBA is it's going to be hard to get the NBA to agree to put another team in Seattle. I just believe that to be the case. So I would not be concerned about that at all.
Steve, Merritt, and Larry, we appreciate your being here today. We enjoyed it. We're adjourned.